However, I want to take a minute to discuss a couple of actual positive law enforcement stories. I know that sounds like it shouldn't exist, right? Whenever there's positive news in the progressive world, the truth is I really do try to cover it. Frankly, it doesn't happen often. It doesn't happen enough. But when we do get some positive news, I want to cover it. One, so we know that it happens, because, trust me, I spend most of these shows talking about all the horrors that are happening in the world, but actually this Monday there were two positive stories that I want to get to, and they have to do with law enforcement. Imagine that. So, for starters, a federal judge has ruled that Stop and Frisk, the Stop and Frisk policy in New York City, is unconstitutional. Big news, right? In doing so, she also ordered a federal monitor brought in to oversee the reforms that need to take place with the New York Police Department. Reading from The Guardian, the judge ruled that Stop and Frisk, quote, violated individuals' right to privacy and equal treatment under the law. In addition, the city's highest officials had, quote, turned a blind eye to evidence that officers carried out the searches in a, quote, racially discriminatory manner. End quote. And again, this is stuff that if you look at Stop and Frisk, it's obvious. It's obvious that it's racist. It's obvious that it's a racist policy. But you never know. The truth is, you never know when judges get this stuff how they're going to react. And this is good news. However, as to be expected, New York Mayor Michael Bloomberg didn't really see this as good news. He saw this as bad news, and he's, of course, planning to appeal the federal judge's ruling. Reading again from The Guardian, quote, Bloomberg claimed that the city's police and mayor's office did not get a fair trial. Oh, really? Really? The tactic of racially profiling and violating the rights of people of color, that didn't get a fair trial? No, your racial profiling didn't get a fair trial? You don't say! No, violating the rights of people of color, that didn't get a fair trial? Really, Mayor Bloomberg? He actually went on to say, quote, the judge conveyed a disturbing disregard for the good intentions of our officers. End quote. Sure, it was a racist policy, but it was a racist policy with good intentions. Racism with good intentions. It's warm and fuzzy racism. New York Police Commissioner Ray Kelly, who, need I remind you, my friends, is actually on President Barack Obama's short list to head the Department of Homeland Security, Ray Kelly said about the ruling, quote, what I find most disturbing and offensive about this decision is the notion that the NYPD engages in racial profiling. End quote. Sure, Ray Kelly, sure. 9 out of the 10 people who are stopped and frisked are people of color, but sure, that's not racial profiling. That's not racial. In fact, Ray Kelly, maybe you should make this point. Try this point, Ray Kelly. I think maybe what you're trying to say is maybe the only ones who are doing the profiling are the ones who are keeping track of who's actually stopped and frisked. If you weren't profiling those who were being stopped by keeping track of what color their skin was, well then we wouldn't know that 9 out of 10 of those stopped and frisked are people of color. So really, what Ray Kelly's trying to say here, it's the statisticians who are doing the profiling.